Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John North. John Becker is away. We're going to talk about disenchanted voters and dispirited politics. Does it sound familiar? It's kind of the state of affairs these days, locally, statewide, nationally. We're talking to somebody who's founded an organization or an effort called Best of Tennessee. The idea is maybe to get back to the middle ground, if you will, amongst people and voters. We'll be talking to Chloe Akers, but before we proceed with that discussion, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Susan Richardson Williams is a Republican and a PR consultant. Good morning.
Go Vols.
I see you're wearing orange, yes.
I am. Of course I am.
And we have Ramsey Cohen, who is a Democrat and a marketing director. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
No orange for you, but you're also a Vol fan.
I didn't pass the test, but yeah, go Vols.
We might talk a little Vols baseball. I think that's been newsy this past week. But we do want to talk now, and I've been looking forward to this show with you, Chloe Akers. You have been a Knoxville attorney. Used to cover you when you represented juveniles and also adults in crimes, and you've now switched to a pretty significant effort which is getting some headlines and there's a lot of discussion about, and that's to try to, as I said, bring the middle back, sort of some common sense middle ground discussion, and bring people who are maybe disaffected and disgusted by the way politics have been going. And your effort is called Best of Tennessee. You've got a couple specific sort of areas that you really want to work on. Could you just start by sharing with what it is you want to do?
Sure. I think the important part to note is that the Best of Tennessee is a long-term project. We're talking about what we could achieve over a decade, which ultimately our goal is to help be a part of electing maybe 20 to 40 thoughtful, responsible leaders from both parties into the Tennessee General Assembly. We are taking our first step toward that long-term goal by activating more of that middle majority to engage first and foremost in the partisan primary process leading up to August 1st. We really see the first step toward achieving a better electorate, and by better we mean more thoughtful, more reasonable, more appropriate leadership as opposed to reactionary. And we think a great first step is broadening and diversifying the base of people who vote in primary elections to begin to shift the incentives of lawmakers away from pleasing fringe portions of their base and toward doing the will of the entirety of their districts. And we hope to take that first step by really broadening out those folks to show up in the primary.
Let's hear from panelists. Susan?
Well, 70 to 85% of the people in Tennessee don't vote in primaries, right?
Correct.
They turn out in November, usually, certainly in presidential, but not necessarily in primaries. And this is a problem, and we talk about it on our show every election. How do we get people to the polls? How are you going to get those folks to vote in primaries?
I'm glad you asked. It took us quite a while to come up with the answer to that question, but I think that what we're doing for the first time is really drawing the connection for people between the frustration that you feel at the state of government in Tennessee and showing up in August. I think that one of the ways we do this is by educating through social media, through digital media, through opportunities just like this to say, hey, the general election in November is critically important, unquestionably. But unfortunately in Tennessee, it's largely uncompetitive. That means that over the last decade or so, only about 11% of elections in the general have been decided by less than 10 percentage points. The competition is in the primary. The primary is largely predictive of who gets the seat. And so we want to energize and motivate people to engage in this process by saying, hey, if you're frustrated for whatever reason, show up in August and November. And we think that's something that's been missing from the conversation. When you say just vote and it'll be okay, that's not always the whole truth. The whole truth is you need to vote in the primary, in the nominating portion of the program, if you want better candidates to choose from in November. So we intend to make those connections through digital media, through social media. Tonight, well, we're going to be seeing this on Sunday morning. We're recording on Thursday night. We're about to have the presidential debate, perhaps one of the most watched presidential debates. There are 2 commercial breaks. The Best of Tennessee will be running our ad across the state of Tennessee in that presidential debate, making that connection between frustration and the primary. So we hope that that begins to mobilize and motivate people to start to think critically about engaging in the process.
Yeah, I admire the work that you're trying to do. I think anything that's going to drive more people to participate in democracy is a good thing for all of us ultimately, and something I think both sides can get behind. I'm curious how you think and plan to go about breaking through on social media and these other digital places that we have, given that they seem to be driving us towards more and more firebrand type rhetoric, and people tend to exist in these echo chambers that reinforce their pre-existing ideas or beliefs as opposed to exposing them to new ways of thinking. And that coupled with it's a crime to change your mind these days seems very difficult. How are you planning to break through that, given that social media tends to drive people to a side they're already on?
Well, it's really interesting you would ask me that question, because if you had asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to answer in the way that I'm about to. What got me to this place in the beginning is that I was able to do exactly what you're describing. I made an Instagram video about an extraordinarily divisive topic, which is abortion. But the way that I spoke about it was not ideologically based, it was functionality based. And I think people gravitated. The reason I think 2 million people watched the first video I posted, which by the way, I thought maybe 8 would because I had a private account, but I think the reason 2 million people did and so many people continue to follow is that the way that I would talk about things was not divisive. It was honest, it was bold, but it was real. And I think that as an organization, we're seeking to take some of what was successful on that front and utilize that. I think folks are craving honesty, and they're craving reality, and they're craving space for complexity. And so we hope to use that to break through the litmus tests and the purity tests that sometimes keep folks away from engagement.
You've been doing a lot in terms of recruiting supporters. Have you been able to sort of reach, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, the common man yet?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. I mean, we have had so much great engagement from folks across the state, from folks on a variety of issues. And I think what makes the Best of Tennessee really interesting is that we're not policy-based. We recognize that Tennesseans across the state feel a lot of frustration, but what frustrates individuals runs the gamut. And we're not here to say one side or the other is more important or more valid. And I think that has allowed a lot of people who otherwise feel shut out of the process to find a landing place. And we've really, really found some strong support from folks who are just making it through every day and all of a sudden feel a place that they belong, because specifically it's not issue-based or policy-oriented.
It's a good time for us to take a break. You're watching Inside Tennessee. We've got Chloe Akers talking about trying to sort of build back the middle, if you will, in political discourse and support. We'll be back right after this break.